Hi, this is John Delancey, and you are listening to the GeekCast Radio Network.
Today on episode 73 of the Cinema Geeks,
we continue our look at the last half-decade.
But this time we shift our attention away from the films and towards the stars of those films,
as we bring you our top 10 actresses of the half-decade.
All that and more coming up on episode 73 with the Cinema Geeks.
That's right, it's episode 73 of the Cinema Geeks, and I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Kevin Optimus Solo, and joining me, as usual, is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. And Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
What's up?
And not much, and we're bringing you a special episode. We're back to our half-decade list. You've heard us do a whole bunch of them throughout the year so far. We've done all of our genre list, including animation and science fiction fantasy and comedy and action and all kinds of different genre lists. And now we're going to switch gears for the next couple episodes, and I'm kind of excited about it. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be some fun. I have no idea how much crossover we're going to have and how much diversity we're going to have based on all of the Twitter responses, which we'll get to later. But today we're talking about actresses, and we're talking about the best actresses of the half decade so far. So we're just looking at 2010 to 2014. We'll kind of get more into that as we go around and kind of talk about everybody's criteria. And then we're going to follow this one up with an episode on the actors next month. And then we'll be ready for our finale show in December as we go through our best actual overall films of the half-decade. And as usual for these lists, we've brought along special guests each time along the way, and we have actually returning for his second adventure in these lists, because I believe you were with us for the science fiction and fantasy films, and that is Jairo from the True Bromance Podcast. Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
It's and why don't you let everybody know where you're at and what time it is?
I am in the Middle East somewhere, and it is 5:30 in the morning. It's very early or late, however you party, however you do it.
So this is how bad both we wanted Jairo on this record, and Jairo apparently wanted to be on this record, is that he's willing to get up at 5:30 in the morning to record for us, and we're all Dan's 10:30 at night, and we're about 9:30 at night. So
I'm a lover of.
We appreciate you being back and of course listening to all your shows throughout the year. I mean, who better to talk about actresses than yourself?
Yes, I will turn this into a disgusting misogynistic mess here shortly.
We actually took bets on how long it's going to take before Amanda actually leaves the recording.
I hope you have some tissues, just saying.
Yes.
Oh, man. It's going like that already. But before we get into that, we do have some business to take care of, because we did make predictions on our last show that I at least want to address. Actually, I really don't want to address them, but I'm sure Dan wants to address them. So last week we all made predictions. We'll start with mine, because we'll start with the worst ones first. And my prediction was that the new releases would go in the following order. Goosebumps would make more money than Crimson Peak, which would make more money than Bridge of Spies. I was incorrect on that, because it was Goosebumps, then Bridge of Spies, and then Crimson Peak, so I flip-flopped the last two. Amanda, your prediction was the top three at the box office for last weekend would be Martian, then Crimson Peak, and then Goosebumps. That was also wrong. Which
also wrong.
Means that Dan actually is the winner, because Dan predicted not only the top three, Dan, you predicted the top four, and you had Goosebumps coming in at 1, Martian at 2, Bridge of Spies at 3, and Crimson Peak at 4. You even added the fourth one as a kicker, and you get all four of them correct, sir.
Yeah, that was all luck, I guess. I don't know. I should have played the Powerball last week, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a DraftKings out there for what we're doing here with the box office predictions. You could have made at least a quarter.
I was at the radio station, and I saw the box office results, and I was like, God damn it, Dan! And I had to text Kevin right away. I was like, fucking Dan got it right. So mad.
So you can tell that there's no shared love here for anybody else getting it right.
Wow.
I'm just happy that we all three didn't get it wrong again, so that's the biggest thing. But we won't make any predictions for next week, because we got a lot of stuff to go over, so we're going to get right into it. So we're going to start just kind of going around the horn here and getting people's criteria, things they were thinking about as they were making the list, because I think, we shot this out to Twitter, the Twitter world, and asked people what their picks would be. We asked them for their top 5, and it was interesting to see their responses, and when I talk about my criteria, it's probably going to explain why some of the responses they had don't make my list. But I'm interested to see kind of how you guys form this. Now, obviously, we're only looking at 2010 through 2014. Dan, I'll let you go first. What kind of things were you thinking about? What weighed heavier than other things when you were trying to formulate your list?
I kind of look at a combination of quality and quantity. So, for example, you have those actresses or actors that they may have like one great performance, but that's all they do for 5 years. Like Daniel Day-Lewis, he shows up once in every 5 years, but
don't speak foul of the man. He's the greatest.
He is. He he only shows up when it matters, I guess. It's like the guy that just shows up for the playoffs or something like that. But
not the Cubs.
No.
Oops.
Yeah. Burn. So I was looking at both a combination of quality and quantity. So it had to have multiple good performances. And although I have exceptions to this rule, I did also look for actresses that kind of became popular or they really became known within this last 5 years. So there are a few of mine that were well known beforehand, but I did kind of try to highlight those. Kind of looking at the actresses that became stars within the last few years.
Right.
So.
And we'll also end this conversation actually kind of looking ahead to the last 5 years of the decade, one of which we're almost all the way through already, to kind of see what our predictions are or kind of what our outlook is for maybe some people that might be added to the conversation over the course of the next 5 years, or which ones are the ones that we're talking about maybe will drop out. So we'll kind of get into a little bit of that. I'll go next because you kind of stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say this was like my Daniel Day-Lewis rule for this list, which was basically the same thing. Like if you only had 1 or 2, 3 great performances, you probably aren't going to make my list because we're talking about 5 years and who's the biggest star out there, or the not necessarily star like in the popular I'm famous type of way, but the biggest from a film critic standpoint, who are the biggest names out there for the whole 5 years. So you had to come out with more than 4 or 5 films for my list. So it is a kind of a balance of quantity and quality because there is a couple people that came out with like 15 films over the 5 years. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make my list if they're all crap. So it definitely is a balance of quality versus and quantity a little bit. Amanda, how about you?
I think my criteria surrounds my views on potential and what they've given in performances, not necessarily quantity, but definitely the quality of the performances. Also, if they played characters that I liked. So, that's about it.
All right. Jairo, what about you? What I know you talked a little bit about some diversity you tried to infuse into your list.
So, for me, they all had to be under 1.5 deuces. No, I'm just kidding.
that only eliminated one person.
Yeah.
Oh, 2. Your 2 favorite people.
Well, I don't know. Melissa McCarthy's kind of short, but no. Honestly, my number 1 and number 2 were immediate. Those are the 2 I've just penciled right in at the top 2, and then everybody else, like 3 through 10, they're all interchangeable. They're like a smorgasbord. Maybe 3, but I did the same thing. So I looked at the quality of the movie that they were in, but also the performance. Like they might have been in a stinker, but I saw the movie and I thought that they were fantastic in it. So, and there's some really great actresses that during this time period put out a bunch of junk, man. So I don't care what they did for the most part in 2009 and before, or maybe like going to the future. Just right there in that window, I stuck with it. So I stuck with your criteria.
Excellent. I like it. We like it when people follow the rules, and that's always helpful.
I tried.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that's hard for people to separate is, when you ask people, there's certain names that you think, they come to your mind right away. And what I found is I was jotting a bunch of names down first before I ever started looking things up. And then as I'm looking stuff up, I'm like, well, this person really didn't do that much in that 5-year period, even though you think they do. So kind of as I was doing the research, it kind of eliminated a lot of the names that came to my mind right away. But I am worried that I'm going to get a lot of hate because, like I said, we put that tweet out there and we got at least 17 or 18 different names thrown out by the various responses, and none of them included half of my list. So I don't know how much people are going to like my list, but maybe you guys will have more in conjunction with the masses or with the responses that we got on Twitter. So Jairo, why don't you go ahead and break the seal for us? What is your number 10?
Wow, on the ladies list I get to go first. Okay, cool. So at number 10 I have Carey Mulligan. So Carey Mulligan is an actress that, for some reason, she doesn't seem to hit the front page of the U.S. Weekly or the People magazine a lot, but she gives a solid performance all the time. and even in films that aren't like exactly widely critically regarded as being fantastic, like Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, she still gives a really strong performance. But then there's performances like Never Let Me Go, Drive, Shame, even Inside Llewyn Davis, which I'm not that big of a fan of, but she's pretty strong in it. Even up to recently, The Far From the Madding Crowd from this year, I just recently saw that, and she gives a really strong performance in a story that I would have probably flushed down the toilet. But so she's somebody that is I think pretty young, and probably has something to look forward to in the coming years.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice, and I think a lot of people will agree with that. It's something that was just on the outskirts of my list, but I definitely considered it. She has had a good 5-year stretch, and I think if we're projecting outward, she's probably going to have even a better next 5 years, I would guess. But I think a lot of people will agree with that one.
Sweet. I mean, that's my like highbrow pick right there.
There we go. You're impressing the masses. All right, Amanda, how about you? What's your number 10? Everybody is waiting with bated breath on the edge of their seats. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is Margot Robbie.
What?
Yes. I haven't seen her in a ton, but I think that most of all, I'm just excited to see her as one of my favorite villains in Suicide Squad. I really did enjoy her performance from this year in Z for Zachariah, so I'm kind of holding that in there too, but I think she has potential to do a lot more. And, Focus and, Wolf of Wall Street, I think she was kind of the same, seductress, that's about it, but I think she has potential to do a lot more, so she's my number 10.
All right.
I actually gotta agree with you there, man. I think that I kind of a little envious of your pick there, because I didn't even think of her, but she was really strong in Wolf of Wall Street. She's is it About Time, where she's kind of a supporting player? She was pretty good, and obviously this year Z for Zachariah, she was really strong. But I mean, I don't think she has that big of a body of work. That maybe that's how.
Right, I think that's the only thing that held me back a little bit was her body of work. But I think if you're going on potential, like Amanda said, I think that's definitely makes it kind of a worthy pick.
But
I
if
think
we're
she
going
has talent
with
and charisma, so.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. But if we're going with work of body, now we're talking.
Anybody can have a body with some work like that.
Yeah.
All right, I will go next because we'll let Dan be the finale, because I'm sure he's got better picks than mine. I say that every week, every time we do one of these.
A lot of pressure. Yeah.
Dan kills it though.
He does. He kills it with these lists. My number 10 is one of those that nobody on the whole Twitter world mentions, so maybe I'm way off. But if you go on just that body of 5 years, I think there's potential here. I think she was in 6 quality films in that 5-year period, and she was in another 5 or 6 other ones, and I'm going with Emily Blunt. Maybe not critically acclaimed like some of the other ones that you'll hear later on, but I think her work in Into the Woods and Edge of Tomorrow, Looper, she did some voice work for a couple films in Romeo and Juliet and The Wind Rises, 5-Year Engagement, The Muppets, Adjustment Bureau, which a lot of people didn't like, but I mean, I think she's been there, she's had a presence, and especially for her work in Edge of Tomorrow, I think she's someone that's kind of fits Dan's criteria of someone who's making a name for herself in that 5-year period that you didn't know before that. Like I said, maybe her resume at this exact moment isn't as strong as some other people that will be mentioned in this record, but I definitely think she deserves to be in the conversation. So she just slides in at my number 10. That's Emily Blunt. And I'm getting a head shake from Amanda that's not impressed.
So disappointed in you right now.
I actually did have her. Go ahead. Her.
No, I was just responding to Amanda about why are you disappointed?
Why did he put her so low on the list?
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to say anything more right
okay.
now.
It's a good offended.
Good offended?
Yes.
Did you just make that up?
I think so. Dan, what were you saying?
I was going to say that she's not on my list, but I did highly consider her because I similar to one thing I did look at is diversity of performances, and I do think that she has that for sure. I mean, from something like Edge of Tomorrow, like you mentioned, to Your Sister, she has done a variety of different films and given a variety of different performances. So I would say she's deserving for sure.
And even if she's been in films that maybe have not been received so well, I don't think it's ever been like a complaint about her performance necessarily or her acting. I mean, I haven't heard people talk about every single film she's been in, but the ones I've heard, I've never really seen people kind of point her out as, oh, she's the weak spot, or oh, she gave a bad performance in that. So that's kind of why she made my number 10. So Dan, where do you have at number 10?
I think I might, actually, if anyone is probably going to have the weakest number 10, maybe it'd be me, but I'm not sure. My number 10, I went for one. I talked about diversity. This is kind of one I went to for this one, too. It's an actress that I think that actually has a lot of potential. It's going to be maybe surprise some people in upcoming years, but it's an actress that's done comedy and is now kind of getting into drama, and that's Kristen Wiig. She started the decade with Bridesmaids, and I thought, she could have easily just done Bridesmaids 2 and 3 and just stayed in that route. But I feel like she's actually tried to really go into some interesting directions and really test herself. From the Skeleton Twins to Welcome to Me from earlier this year, she's done a lot of voice work as well. I just think being able to be both really funny and be also a strong dramatic actress as well. I don't think maybe she gets enough credit, and I legitimately think in the next 5 years she may become even a stronger and maybe even get into that Oscar type of category. But so that's why I went with her for my number 10.
Hey, she was in my first draft as well. When the first time I was writing names down, her name did appear. So I don't think you're too far off with that one. I think she's on the cusp of doing a bunch of good stuff.
I think the only reason I booted her out is because she still has that stigma of I don't know if stigma is the right word of it, but like she's kind of colored with that brush of comedy still. So like when you see her, she kind of like in The Martian recently, she stuck out so hard to me. Like, okay, where's the joke coming? But I mean, I did see Skeleton Twins and love that. So I do see the potential there for kind of branching out and maybe getting more into some of those serious roles. And she's pretty good at it. I mean, she was really, really good in Skeleton Twins.
And I think she even started with, Friends with Kids, which is a really underrated movie from 2011, where she was more of a side but serious role where she's not comedic at all. So, yeah, she does have to get over that stigma, but I think she's making a lot of smart choices, at least to try to do that, unlike other comedic actresses that kind of just stick with what made them famous.
Jairo, that means it's back to you for your number 9 pick.
So at number 9, I went with an old grand dame, and it's Juliette Binoche. I love this actress. I mean, anytime she's in anything, she's strong. So in 2010, she was in a little film called Certified Copy that I dig. And she's been on a ton of stuff, and most of it I haven't seen, but the strength of that movie and her performance in Clouds of Sils Maria this year just easily propelled her. And let's be honest, it's kind of what I already know about her. So she's every time she's on the screen, she's fantastic, man. I'm a huge fan of hers. So yeah, she is my number 9.
I thought your number 10 was your highbrow pick.
No, I went even higher. They're all pretty highbrow. Now that I started looking at it, I was like, man, I'm so snobby.
I got to admit, I'm just not as familiar as I probably should be with her filmography, so it wasn't a name that was on my radar, and it wasn't a name I did the research on. But so I can't say it's a good or a bad pick, but she's definitely someone who has the critical acclaim behind her. So
love her, man.
Can't say anything bad about it.
I think she's always awesome. Like she sells out for even garbage, Godzilla. She tries.
Yeah. The reason I didn't include her, I agree, she's amazing in Certified Copy, which is really the only film within the last decade so far that I've really watched that she's been in. So I really feel like I can't say, but yeah, she's in one of my all-time favorite movies in Blue, and if she's going to be in a movie, it's going to be good. So she's money no matter what.
Yeah, check out Clouds of Sils Maria from this year. That was pretty good.
Oh, I fucking couldn't even get through that. I hated it.
Now, if Melissa McCarthy was in it, I bet you'd be a big-ass fan of it.
It'd be a fucking ball of good time if it was.
Literally a ball of good time.
Which brings us to my number 9. Say what you will, I think this next actress always puts a ton of heart into what she does. You can't help but get the feels when you see her get a little down. Say what you will about her, but she brought back the Farley humor, and I love it. It's Melissa McCarthy at number 9.
I'm actually surprised it's not higher, to be honest.
I thought it was going to be way up there.
Everybody that was waiting for that is disappointed that it's not higher on your list.
That's okay.
All right, so any film particular that makes her make your list, or just kind of just the overall effort?
I think that a ton of her stuff. I mean, The Heat, I can watch that over and over again. I crack the hell up. Even Spy from this year, right? I thought that was really fun. Dude, Tammy, whatever. Give her the pies.
Give her the pies.
A pie.
The pies that she steals from them.
Oh, that's right. I skipped that.
I just think it's funny, and she's super relatable, and I just feel like she's real. As over the top as her humor is, I feel like me and her should be besties, and we should be talking shit about people and stealing pies from fast food places.
My only regret is that she could never appear in a movie with Chris Farley, because...
Yeah, I saw her actually do Chris Farley, though, and I was like, this is so perfect.
All right, so everybody, the moment that you were waiting for has come and gone. That was number 9 from Amanda with Melissa McCarthy. Which brings me to my number 9, which, again, nobody on Twitter said her, so apparently I'm off on this one too, and that is Emma Stone.
Chompers.
Chompers, as some people may call her. Been in a ton of films already in the half decade. I think there's, again, about 5 or 6 good ones. You got Crazy Stupid Love. She appeared in The Help. Even as much as people hate on Amazing Spider-Man, I think she was a great casting in that film, and probably my favorite part of that film. Gangster Squad, which is mixed reviews on that one. Birdman, Magic in the Moonlight from last year. So I mean, she's making the rounds. She's, like Dan said too, with Emily Blunt, with Emma Stone. She does have a diverse body of work so far. She's doing a lot of different types of films, serious, funny, a little bit of drama, etc. So I think she's somebody that we're only going to hear more from as the decade continues. So she's strong enough for her to come in at my number 9.
I'm going to hold off on what I have to say.
I thought for sure she'd be much higher for you, man.
Yeah, I did too originally, and then as I was doing the research, man, some of these names I couldn't deny. So I
consider putting her on there as well, man. I thought she's done a lot of good stuff. As much as I kind of mess with her, to my co-host Barry about that, she's always pretty good in her films.
Yeah, and she's even good in some bad films. So, Dan... Birdman included. Amanda said that. I did not say that, folks. I did not say that. Amanda said that.
I'll shoulder that blame.
Dan, that's
second that motion.
We have 3 Birdman haters on the record today. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Dan, you got your number 9 up next.
I do have my number 9, and my number 9 is, I think, an actress before the year 2010. Probably even sooner than that. I didn't really consider her a serious actress. I just kind of thought she was one that was more looks than actually talent, but I feel like the last few years she's kind of shown that she's a legit actress, and I think it started a few years ago, or most recently with Kevin's favorite film, Under the Skin, and then of course I think she's been in the Avengers films, and I think though the one performance is that she maybe be her best is when she's not on the screen at all, and that's her. And of course, I'm talking about Scarlett Johansson. She, I think, has kind of shown that she has a bigger range than I ever thought. And I think with Under the Skin and her, if you look at those 2 different performances, vastly different. One that is void of really any emotion, void of talking, where it's just her. And then with her, of course, it's all voice, and the personality she could portray and the chemistry she was able to manufacture with Joaquin Phoenix, even though they were never really even talked to one another. So I think if there were awards given to voice performances, I think she probably may have been nominated for that. But I think again, someone who's really become more of an actress, and she's done those action type of films as well with Lucy and being Black Widow, and she's fine in those, and I think she can pull those off. But I think really where she's going to have a sustainable career is other films like that of Under the Skin and her.
Yeah, and we actually did give her an award. It's just not an official, over at the voice acting website for last year, amongst all the different voice roles, because I think, or not last year, but the year that her came out, because it was so impressive. But I'll hold most of my thoughts on ScarJo.
Same for me. I'm going to go ahead and abstain in this round.
All right, that means, Jairo, you can abstain on that one, but you can talk about your number 8 instead.
Okay, so my number 8 is kind of a little bit of a cheat, and that's Elizabeth Moss. She's had really good performances in The One I Love and Listen Up, Philip, a movie that really didn't resonate with me, but I thought she was fantastic in it. But I can't help but remember her performance as Peggy Olson in Mad Men. So I know that we're talking movies and stuff like that, but I can't eliminate all the stuff that she did in that role. I didn't get to see Queen of the Earth, but there was a lot of buzz around that performance, so And I think that she's got a real big future going for her going forward. So yeah, she's my number. What are we at? 8?
Yep, number 8. When you said I'm going to cheat, I was like, "There's the only way you could cheat on this list is somehow picking a guy." Like, what are you about to say?
She's even really good in Top of the Lake as well, which is another like TV miniseries. So, which is kind of like in between, movies and.
She's kind of like all over the place. Yeah, she's all over the place as far as her like diversity, but she's really fantastic every time she's on screen. So I'm a big fan of hers. She's at my number 8.
Yeah, I've been a fan of her since she's been in West Wing from the early days, so it's kind of crazy seeing where she has come to now. So,
the champion of both the TV world and the movie world here. So, great pick. I agree. I've liked most of what I've seen, but I haven't seen any of the TV shows that she's been in because I am a hermit. So, I can't comment on Mad Men or any of the other stuff. Amanda, Melissa McCarthy is out of the way. Where do we go from there?
I'd like to think my list is not all about Melissa McCarthy, so stop making it all about Melissa McCarthy.
Last time I mentioned it, I promise.
God. Emma Stone is my number 8. I really loved her in Aloha from this year, right? Even as Gwen Stacy, like you said, I thought she really stole the show there. I thought...
Till her head hit the ground.
But I also realized in my list I have a lot of ladies with really cool, kind of raspy and like sultry voices, and I think she's one of the first ones. I guess Margot Robbie has a really cool voice too. I love everything that she does, I think, except for even in Birdman, I was kind of bored with her. Just that whole movie just was a big turn off, but I like her. I like her work overall.
All right, so 2 mentions for Emma Stone. Take that, Twitter world. All right, my number 8 is, I got to look at my paper actually. I think these, for me, 10, 9, and 8 are so similar for me. They're all in the same ballpark, and that was Emily Blunt and Emma Stone, and now my number 8, which is Anna Kendrick. I just think there's a lot of similarities between these individuals. They're all kind of bursting on the scene in this last 5 years. I think they all have a lot more that possibly could come out in the next 5 years. And again, with Anna Kendrick, she's doing a lot of stuff. She started obviously in the whole Twilight franchise at the beginning of the decade, but we won't hold that against her. You had Scott Pilgrim, 50-50, End of Watch, What to Expect When You're Expecting, Pitch Perfect, Into the Woods, Paranorman, Drinking Buddies, and The Company You Keep. So, I mean, that's a fairly decent list. I mean, I know there's been some bombs in there as well, and some of those that I mentioned people are probably rolling their eyes at. I was just mentioning a bunch of films she was in, not saying they're all great. But, I mean, she definitely carried the Pitch Perfect franchise to what it was able to achieve financially, but I think she's also shown some other sides in some of these other films as well, and I think she does a good job when she's on screen, even if sometimes she doesn't have the best material. So like Emily Blunt and Emma Stone, I put Anna Kendrick in the same group here at my number 8.
I had her as like an honorable, but the thing was her roles, some of those really good movies were too small for me, so that
I can see that.
I left that out.
Part of what stopped her from being my list too was that I felt like her best performance has been up in the air, and she hasn't got up to that point yet. Again, like I think she's been good, but I feel like she's kind of been. I mean, not doing the same thing, but I feel like I would like to see her do something that is vastly different. I mean, she did do like Happy Christmas, which was a different turn for her, but I would like to see her do more of that. I mean, just to kind of venture out a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think a little of mine probably is erring somewhat on the side of potential too, and what I think she's capable of, even if she hasn't necessarily achieved it many times in the last 5 years. I think she's there. Kind of on the brink, but she just hasn't quite done what she needs to do to kind of really break out. All right, that means Dan, it's your turn for your number 8.
Well, my number 8 kind of goes against the criteria I talked about actresses that are becoming, known within the last 5 years. This is an actress that is well known long before that. She's been in the game for quite a while, and similar to Jairo, also part of her work has been in TV, but more of a TV movie, and that's Juliette Moore. She's been in a lot in the last 5 years. Kids All Are Right to last year winning her first Oscar with Still Alice, but also some TV work with Game Change, which I thought where she played Sarah Palin and actually did quite a good job. I think that's a really underrated film. And to me, like the Kids All Are Right, somehow she was overlooked with it in that, and I thought she had the best performance in that movie by far. And within Still Alice, I think she finally got an Oscar that she long deserves because she's been doing great work for such a long time now. But I just think that her overall work in the last 5 years has been consistently really great. And again, she's an actress that has been trying to, I think, find really tough and challenging material, and even some things that are more fun, like Crazy Stupid Love, where she's just kind of more comedic. And I mean, obviously, there's serious angles to that movie too, but I felt because of her strong performance, I included her in the list as well.
I got to talk on this one because I am an owner of Julianne Moore in the Fantasy Film League, and I think that's probably the distaste.
Own her.
I own her in that league, so I think it's the distaste in my mouth from the negative points she's gotten me for appearances in some very bad movies this year so far.
Luckily I wasn't counting this year, so and this year has not been her best year. Yeah.
But I agree with you. She has put out a bunch of films, but honestly what kept her off, and I know she's a good actress, and the stuff that I've seen her in, I can see that, and I know, she has the name and the respect of most cinephiles. My problem with her is she's more of a blind spot for me with a lot of these films. I've seen, obviously, Hunger Games and Don John and Crazy Stupid Love. I honestly haven't seen much else that she's done in the last 5 years, even though there's been a lot of films. For some reason, I've missed most of them, so I just need to catch up on some of her films, and that's really the only thing, because I thought for sure she was a shoo-in for my list, but it's more of I just haven't seen the films that she's been in the last 5 years that I didn't feel right putting her on my list, so that's really the only reason she's not on it.
Fair enough.
All right, that means it's back to you, Jairo. What do you got at number 7?
At number 7, I just made a kind of a switch. I was looking at my list. I was like, why is this other person ahead of my other person? So I just bumped her back, and I got Marion Cotillard at number 7. I think that she also kind of like who was the other? Julia Binoche, where she always brings something, even though the movie's not that great, or Carey Mulligan. She was in Midnight in Paris, which I loved. Inception was a great film that I kind of dig. Contagion. Rust and Bone is one that I didn't see, but I've heard lots of good things about it, especially about her performance. Dark Knight Rises. The Immigrant was really good. Her performance was really good. Let me rephrase, because of that movie. Anchorman 2. But 2 Days and One Night recently, I saw that at I saw that actually in Chicago, man, at the old Music Box Theater, and that was one of the best kind of movie-going experiences in the last few years for me. So I can't help forget that. So she's at my number 7.
And she either won or was nominated for an Oscar for 2 Days, One Night.
I believe she was nominated. She lost to Julianne Moore.
Okay, and I wanted to. I'm glad you brought that one up, because this is my number 11. Missed my top 10 by one spot, and this is probably the hardest part about my list. Is I got down to 15, and then getting from 15 to 10 was painful. And she was the last one to kind of miss the cut. And I don't know if it was, I don't know what exactly, maybe, I mean, Inception's obviously great, and I've seen her in Immigrants. I think it was more kind of like Julianne Moore. I haven't seen 2 Days, One Night yet, and maybe if I had seen that, it would have bumped her into my top 10, because she only missed it by one spot for me.
Nice.
All right, that means, Amanda, it's your turn for number 7.
This next actress, I don't think she's been in a ton this last half decade, but I really want to see her in more. And I keep bringing up movies from this year, but they're so fresh in my mind, I can't help it. I think she's really good in Southpaw, and that's Rachel McAdams. And I think she can play some really great dramatic roles, but she has enough diversity where I think she can play a wide range of type of lady. And I think she's a little sassy. I like her.
All right. I think she was good in that, too, for the short period of time that she was in that film.
Yeah, if she didn't get booted off and after the first 3 minutes, she might have made my list. She was like the first to go in Survivor. She was just gone.
Nobody's going to remember you at the finale.
Right. All right, my number 7, I know most people probably would have this a little bit higher, but hey, it's on my list, so don't give me too much crap. My number 7, I am going with Tilda Swinton, and I know 7 might seem, like I said, not high enough, but the only reason I'm doing that is because if you take 2014 out of the equation, I don't think her body of work is enough to make her list for make the list for the half decade, honestly. And maybe that's just because I haven't seen some of this stuff, but it's all 2014 for me. It's Moonrise Kingdom, Snowpiercer, or Moonrise Kingdom was a little bit before, but Snowpiercer, Grand Budapest Hotel, Only Lovers Left Alive, which a lot of people talked about in varying ways, but she was just burst onto the scene right there at the end of the half decade, I guess, if you want to call it. So that's why she's down at number 7 and not a little bit higher. I think if she had 5 years that were all like 2014, she'd be like number 1 on my list. But instead, she's number 7. But I still think this is a kind of where my list turns. I had Anna Kendrick, Emma Stone, and Emily Blunt at that, the last 3, and now with 7 through 1, I think it's all high quality, and we're starting that with Tilda Swinton.
I will abstain.
All right, Dan, number 7 for you.
Well, my number 7 is one who's been mentioned twice already, so I will not add that much more. My number 7 is Emma Stone. And I think maybe performance-wise, some of the other people like Julianne Moore may have given better performances, but for Emma Stone, for me, it's just like a personality thing. I feel like when she's in a movie, I just enjoy it more. She's a lot of fun, and she, from Easy A from 2010, where she kind of became a star, to Birdman, which I think is a legitimate performance that she, finally got some recognition, got her first Oscar nomination for that, also Spirit Award nomination. So again, she's one that is kind of running out. She started as more of a teen, comedic actress, but is now becoming an even more stronger actress. And I know, there are some other actresses right now that may have kind of started their career around the same time and maybe more prominent now, but I feel like she has a longer trajectory, and I'm liking seeing her getting partnerships with directors like Woody Allen, who can kind of use her comedic talent in smart ways. So I'm hoping to see more of that, and again, it's another potential thing where I think she has a lot to consider into like Anna Kendrick, like the next 5 years maybe even better, and she may be giving even better performances. So.
Yeah, obviously I'm in agreement since she was on my list as well, and I think Amanda's in agreement too. So no complaints with your number 7. That means we're rounding off the first half here. So Jairo, what's your number 6?
So number 6 is the one that I kind of moved forward a little bit, and that's Scarlett Johansson. And a lot was already said about her, but the one movie that you didn't talk about was the landmark film Chef, where she plays such a critical role. No, I mean
of Jon Favreau's girlfriend, which might be her most impressive performance yet. That we could buy that.
Really reach. Yeah. But I mean, you guys already kind of ran through it. I mean, she's been in everything that's fantastic. Don John, of The Skin, Her, whatever. So and Her was just blew me away. It was just incredible what she was just able to do with her voice, because she's obviously just one of those actresses that kind of everybody has a pin up on the wall about. So to do something with her, just her acting was incredible to me. So she is my number 6.
Can't argue with that. All right, Amanda, what is your number 6?
I have one that's already been mentioned as well. It's Marion Cotillard. I think she was really awesome in Inception and The Immigrant. And I also love her voice. I think it's a really cool sounding voice, and I love anything with like a European accent, or the Eastern European accent. I'm all over that. I really connected with her in The Immigrant. Yeah, but it sounds like in The Immigrant, I super loved her voice in that, because she had like that Eastern European thing. She's coming from Poland. I'm all over that.
Gotcha.
I think her intensity is really awesome. I think she's intense in everything she does. And also, like in Contagion, she was really good and stuff too. So that's my number 6.
All right. My number 6, just like my number 7, is going to get some flack for not being high enough, but I don't care. Everyone on Twitter wanted this probably at their number 1. I'm going to have it instead at my number 6, and that's Jennifer Lawrence. Let me explain before anybody gets upset.
Nobody's getting upset.
All right.
No,
I get the Hunger Games, all right. Obviously, that's the major thing she's been doing. And you have Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle and the X-Men stuff, but maybe it's just because I haven't seen Winter's Bone, the one that she actually got the Oscar attention for. But I just think if you take Hunger Games and X-Men out of the equation, I mean, I know that's not fair to take two of the biggest things like that, two big, huge franchises out, but I don't know. I've seen her in a few very bad films as well. Serena was terrible. Honestly, I think she got outacted in American Hustle. I know Dan, you'll probably disagree with me, but I think she did.
Of course she did.
And I don't know. I think she deserves all the love and praise that she gets. That's fine, but I also think that there's 4 or 5 people that have had a better half decade. So I guess that's my argument, but I can't get into it much until I reveal those names. So I respect her. I think she's great. She's on my top 10, but I don't think she deserves to be number 1, number 2 in that range.
Well, I will hold off anything for now. I will say the movie Syriana, I think that movie was a mess for many reasons beyond just her. But yeah, I would say see Winter's Bone, because I do think if you look at that performance compared to stuff like Silver Linings or American Hustle, I think it kind of gives you a better idea of just. I still think that's maybe her best performance still to date, but I'll say it.
In American Hustle, it's such a loud performance. You know, it doesn't. And I did see Winter's Bone, and it's like a muted thing that she's got going on. I thought it was fantastic, but hey, she's not even on my list, so
there we go.
I'm not mad for having so low.
I do think with my 6 through 1, I've kind of changed the corner though, with one exception to also to people that I think can that have the star power to lead films and to be the main player in a film. I'm not saying some of the other ones can't, but I really think, starting with Jennifer Lawrence, these are people that you can have her and a bunch of supporting characters and you can have a successful film, where maybe you can't do that at this point with a couple of the other ones that I've mentioned. So, all right, Dan, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is, again, actress that's also been mentioned already, but it's one that you mentioned last round in Tilda Swinton. And I know you mentioned 2014 was just the year that she had a lot of stuff, but I would also say in 2010 she was in an Italian film called I Am Love, which might actually be her best performance within this past 5 years. She's an actress who can give multilingual performances like Marion Cotillard or Julia Binoche, and I think that is a talent. That is something you don't see very often. And I think Tilda Swinton is one of those actresses that, it's kind of cliche, but she does escape into roles. She can play really unique and out there characters. There's not many actresses that can make her performance or the character in Snowpiercer work. I think a lot of people couldn't make that level of cheesiness and just the right bit of overacting and make it kind of humorous. I think that's a lot harder of a performance than people may realize. And even in something where she is truly unrecognizable, like the Grand Budapest Hotel, I mean, she goes all out, and she can be theatrical. She can, be someone from could be the evil witch from Narnia to something like I said, with I Am Love. So she is multifaceted, and I think because of that, I have her on my list. So I mean, maybe I should have her higher. I'm not sure, but again, partially maybe because, like you mentioned, for the entire decade, she hasn't had the minus I Am Love. She hasn't had a huge, a lot of smaller roles here and there, but I think every time she's in the movie, she's fantastic.
I think the best argument for her being higher is the diversity in her roles. I know we've talked about that a lot of times so far in this list and thrown out that a lot, but I don't think anybody has it more than she does. She can be any type of role. Exactly. She can be crazy. She can be funny. She can be transformative. So, I mean, I think that's the best argument for why she should be higher, or why some people would say that she should be higher, and I can't disagree with that. She is a chameleon when it comes to being an actress in so many different roles.
I will continue to abstain.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, give everybody a chance to regroup, and like Jairo's doing, rearrange his picks as we get to the top 5, and we'll be right back with our top 5 actresses of the half-decade.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey guys, it's Optimus Solo and
Hard Candy Mandy.
And we just wanted to let you guys know about another podcast out there that we both think you would all enjoy.
It's one of both of our favorite shows to listen to, and it's none other than the True Bromance Podcast.
True Bromance is a movie podcast hosted by longtime friends Jairo and Barry, and if you like to smile, laugh, and just be genuinely entertained while listening to movie talk, then this is definitely the right show for you.
Each week, the guys break down a recently released movie, and not only do they tie in the movie that week to the beers that they are drinking during the show,
but they also tie it in to a real fun top and bottom 5 list associated with that movie.
It's a blast hearing both sides of these lists, and it definitely makes them unique amongst all other movie review podcasts.
So we definitely want to recommend all of you guys to go check out their show. Just search out the True Bromance Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and all other podcast platforms. And if you listen via iTunes, do us a favor and leave them a 5-star review. And don't forget to let them know that the Cinema Geeks sent you.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk.
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing. Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
All right, thanks for sticking with us, and it's time to continue our countdown of the best actresses of the half-decade, 2010 through 2014. We've already gone through our 10 through 6 picks, so we're picking up at our number 5. Jairo, what do you have at number 5?
So this actress is one that kind of surprised me over the last 5 years, and that's because when she was on Dawson's Creek, I was like, man, this chick's going to be homeless as soon as this show goes off the air. And that's Michelle Williams. She's been in so many. She hasn't been in a lot of movies, but every time she's in a film, dude, it's just like this great performance. Blue Valentine is one that kind of like reaches into my chest and pulls out my heart every time I watch it. Shutter Island is a really good one. Meek's Cutoff. If you haven't seen that, you should probably go out there and check it out. But Texas Waltz, another one. And then it kind of falls off for her a little bit in the last few years, but I think that she's still got it. I think she's got a lot of potential going forward. She's definitely one of those actresses that I'll throw onto that list of I can't wait to see what she's got to do for the next 10, 15 years. So yeah, Michelle Williams is my number 5.
I agree with you as far as the Dawson's Creek thing. I wouldn't have ever guessed that she would have had a career after that show was over. She was one of those that was in my top 15 and then just didn't quite make the cut to get onto my list. But I think you're right. She has been in a lot of films, and she hasn't really put up very many bad performances. I can't point to a single one.
Yeah,
so.
In like Dawson's Creek, it was like, man, this Katie Holmes chick, she's going places, man. She's going to be a huge star. She's going to be a great actress. And
she met Tom Cruise.
And this Michelle Williams person, who? Oh, looks like we were a little wrong there.
Dawson's Creek. I can't believe we got that mentioned in there. All right, Amanda, what do you got at your number 5?
This is one pick that is based solely on characters that I've liked that she's played, and that's Jennifer Lawrence. We've already brought her up. I mean, obviously Hunger Games, X-Men, cool. Also, House at the End of the Street, that was really good. I like that film too, and I don't like a lot of her stuff outside of those characters, but I'm not going to be opposed to liking something that she puts out that's not, Mystique or Katniss.
All right. More Jennifer Lawrence love at your number 5. Obviously, I've already talked about her. And that means I should talk about somebody else. My number 5 is someone also that was not mentioned at all by the Twitter world. I think part of this is going to be more of just a personal bias because I just really like her as an actress. Maybe some people would argue she doesn't stack up to some of these other people, but she's been in a lot of stuff, and I think the 5 or 6 of them during this half-decade have been real top quality, and that's Zoe Saldana. So
really?
That is my... Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Not in agreement, I take it.
Well, I don't know. I'm interested to see what you're basing this on, like what she's been in and stuff like that. So I'm sorry.
And I think she's been in a bunch of films that people haven't liked, but I've liked more than they have. Like, I actually liked The Words. I know most people didn't like that, but I did, and she was a major role in that. I liked Star Trek Into Darkness. I liked her role there. I liked her voice work in Book of Life. Obviously, Guardians of the Galaxy. I liked her role in Out of the Furnace. I even think that there's some stuff, even if the films aren't that great, from possibly from Losers or Columbiana. So, I mean, I think, like I said, it's more of a personal bias because I just really like her as an actress, and I like the roles that she's played. Obviously, she doesn't have that Oscar caliber performance or movie on her resume like a lot of these other people that we're talking about do, but I am interested whenever I see that she is cast in a film. So
I'm going to jump in and say that's not my number 4 pick. So
okay, so support me.
Wow. Yeah, that's my number 4. I think that she has a really exotic look. I love her. I think she brings a lot to her roles. I think she also has that intensity and that potential to play just about anything. And I love her in the sci-fi flicks. And I think she also has her own level of badassness. And she also has a really cool voice.
You're all about the voices today.
Yeah, and I loved her in The Book of Life, her voice acting there. Takers, she was in Takers. And I think she's a little ball of talent.
I think she's, too, someone that, with the right script and the right film, that she can lead something all on her own. I don't think she necessarily needs to rely on anybody else to kind of play off of. She can kind of take it herself, and I think I respect that. So, Jairo, you're not a big fan, huh?
She's been such a small player in all those films. I didn't see the Book of Life one. I didn't see that, but in like Guardians of the Galaxy, she's got a small role. It's not like, I mean, obviously she's part of a team, and even there, Chris Pratt is kind of like the front man of that movie. And then definitely didn't see Colombiana, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I can agree with you that the potential is there. I just don't see like how she'd be like in retrospect looking at her filmography. I mean, but hey man, if you dig her, you dig her, dude. I mean, I'm not gonna
like I said, it's more of a personal
crush.
It's more of a personal pick. I understand that she doesn't maybe have the same, like I said, Oscar-worthy type stuff in that vein, but I think as far as just a fun action type role, or even in some more of these serious roles, even in Blood Ties, as bad as I think that movie was, and well, not bad, but as messy as that was, I still liked her. Dan, what side of the fence do you fall on with Aldana?
I think she's okay. I guess I never really considered her for this list. She always, to this point, for me, always felt like more of a movie star than a movie actress. Like, she's never one that I was like, wow, that was a great performance. She's been serviceable. She's been fine. But I never got excited because she got cast in a role or really was affected by any of her performances. I mean, she's been, she's done her job, but I guess I don't know. I'm not seeing what you are.
All right. We'll be the lone wolves here on this one. And like I said, I can understand what you guys are saying. It's more of like just a personal favorite of mine, so I had to find a way to throw her in there somewhere. So, all right. I have no idea what's happening because everybody's going out of order, but I think, Dan, it's your turn for number 5.
I think I'm on number 5. I'm not sure. And my number 5 is another one that's already been mentioned, I think at least twice, if not 3 times, and it's Marion Cotillard. Again, like it's been mentioned, she's got quite the filmography. I mean, from Rust and Bone to The Immigrant to, again, even like genre films like Dark Knight Rises and its Inception. She brings a gravitas to what she does. Again, maybe it's just the voice, she has that. It just seems when she's talking, the words she's saying are important for whatever reason. But again, like I don't know, she has like a presence to her, and something like 2 Days and One Night most recently, and she keeps giving out like high quality performances. So I think my first introduction to her was probably Inception. I'm like, wow, she's really, and ever since then I felt like every time she's in a movie I've been gravitated towards her and what she's doing. So
all right, obviously everybody agrees with Cotillard being in this discussion. And I think that's for good reason. Jairo, what do you have at your number 4?
At number 4 starts when we start going into kind of the titans of the last 5 years for me. And number 4 is Cate Blanchett. She it kind of goes without saying that she is one of the best actresses working in Hollywood today, in my opinion. But she's been in so many good movies throughout her career. But the last 5 years, I mean, the one big highlight I guess I want to like put a little tick mark on is Blue Jasmine. Blue Jasmine is one of those incredible, just nutsoid performances that just kind of blows you out the water when you see it. And I mean, anytime she's on screen, I think she commands it with such a presence that you just can't ignore her. So yeah, I got Cate Blanchett at number 4.
If I was going off of like the best actresses since 2000, I think she would make my list because I'm a big fan of hers and I've liked a lot of stuff that she's done. That was one that I automatically thought was going to be on my list until I started looking at just 2010 through 2014, and I mean it's Robin Hood, Hannah, the Hobbit films, Blue Jasmine, Monuments Men, and How to Train Your Dragon 2, and
she was fantastic in Cinderella. Cinderella I wasn't really a big fan of, but dude, she's like chewing up the scenery and ham it up so bad. Have you seen Cinderella?
Yeah, I mean, that's 2015.
Oh, that doesn't count?
But I think she's in the discussion. I definitely think she's there. I think it's hard to separate everything she's done prior to this, but I think when I was just looking at the last 5 years, that's kind of why I eliminated her. But obviously, it's pretty universally accepted that she was great in Blue Jasmine. So
yeah, I didn't include her kind of like my Daniel Day-Lewis role. I think Blue Jasmine, if I was ranking best performances of the last decade, certainly like that would be near the top, for sure. And I think she's fantastic in Hannah too. Talking about chewing the scenery, she's playing like a really fun, like fairy tale villain in that, and you can see that too in Cinderella. So if that's the only reason I didn't include her. I going into it, I thought, okay, she was definitely in my top 10,
right.
But again, since I am also trying to consider quantity as well, that's why I didn't make my overall top 10. But there's no doubt she's an amazing actress for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with Jairo what you're saying. She's one of the best actresses in the business right now and working today. So that I can't argue with. I guess just when I'm trying to focus and find scope it, that's why she was left to the sideline for me unexpectedly.
She definitely knows Zoe Saldana, though. Let's be honest.
True. I mean, like, who is, though, really? I mean,
yeah, I mean, Zoe Saldana.
She's not been like a kick-ass action star. Maybe soon.
Maybe soon.
She'll soon lead a teenage love affair action series one day.
I don't think I'm going to hold my breath for that. All right, my number 4, since we're skipping over Amanda, is also somebody that didn't get mentioned on Twitter, so I'm probably going to get some shit for this one as well. But The Social Network, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Her, Ain't Them Body Saints, Side Effects. I'm going with Rooney Mara as my number 4. I just think that there's too many films there that you can't ignore. Obviously, she got the Oscar attention with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but there's been a whole lot of other films along the way that I think it's where the quantity argument comes in, as well as the quality for most of those films that she's appeared in. So I know a lot of people probably, again, maybe too high, but Rooney Mara is my number 4.
She was actually my number 11, too, and I also, she's really great in, Side Effects, and like you said, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Again, she kind of broke on the scene with The Social Network, has been kind of going ever since then. So I was really hard to not include her, but I don't disagree. She just barely missed the cut for me.
Same for me, man. Ain't Them Body Saints, I think, is one of those movies that you watch it and you get surprised, like, why is nobody talking about this movie? Like, why this movie is, I thought it was fantastic. I love that movie. And I don't know exactly why I started to watch it, because I'd never heard of it before. But when I was done with it, man, I was so blown away. I think she's fantastic. She was also an honorable mention for me.
All right, Dan, that takes us to your number 4.
Well, my number 4, honestly, going into this, I thought I'd have to defend why I didn't have this person up higher. But I guess I'm going to be the highest on this. I'm not sure. And that's Jennifer Lawrence. I thought, 4 would be kind of low, but apparently that's not the case with us. But we talked about her a lot as well. But I think it's easy to kind of dismiss movies like The Hunger Games and the X-Men films, because, they're just action franchises, but I think she does bring something, at least to The Hunger Games, that not many other actresses would. Look at something like Divergent, where Shailene Woodley, who I think is a legitimate actress, she can't, maybe because the material isn't as strong, I think Lawrence brings something so much more to that. I'm not a huge fan of those films, but I think she does elevate the material that she's given. And 2, I think Wonder's Bone is a performance that maybe gets overlooked now because of everything she's done, but that to me is maybe her most gritty, most true-to-life performance, where you see someone that feels so much like a real person compared to that of something that's loud and over the top like American Hustle, which I don't disagree that she is outacted in that film, and I'll get to that shortly as we count down this list. But I do think she's really fun and funny in Silver Linings Playbook, which is a movie I don't like as much as other people, but I do think there's no denying her performance. And also had to include her because of just thinking of, if you ask people, who is, the biggest movie star within the last 5 years, I think she's certainly going to be in that conversation for nearly everyone. She's become such a huge icon in the last couple of years. Maybe it's not just because of her performances, maybe it's other things, but I do think without at least a strong body of work that she wouldn't be there. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you're definitely hit it on the head there as far as the first name that comes to a lot of people's minds when you're saying who's the best actress right now, or who's the biggest movie star right now, or who's the best actress of the last 5 years, is definitely going to come to a lot of people's minds in the first couple names that they say.
I don't necessarily think she's a better actress than someone like Tilda Swinton. I think Tilda Swinton probably could out-act her any day of the week, but if I'm just again, considering I'm looking at actresses that have kind of become who they are within the last 5 years, it's kind of why I had her high, and I didn't think I had her high enough, but hey.
the biggest
You're right
movie actress would be Melissa McCarthy. Let's be honest.
Let's not kid ourselves here, okay?
And by biggest, I mean, you know, a lifetime pass at Orion's buffet.
Dude, I miss Ryan's. They got rid of all those out here.
Thankfully, dude. Don't eat that stuff. It's toxic waste.
All right, that means it's time for the nitty-gritty. Jairo, start us off with what your number 3 is.
So number 3 is kind of one of those that was almost a shoo-in when you kind of floated this list to me, and that's Amy Adams. She's been in a ton of films, some really great films, some not so great, but The Fighter, The Master, Her, American Hustle, The Great, Man of Steel, Big Eyes. She's always fantastic. I mean, she definitely, we were talking about out-acting Jennifer Lawrence. I think Amy Adams also took the cake in that film. And I love her, man. Every time I want to just sit here and watch her writhe on the bed like she did in The Fighter, over and over and over, man. I love Amy Adams, dude. Huge fan of hers. And I'm really
who had the bet for number 3 pick before Jairo said something inappropriate?
You mean talking about Ryan's buffet wasn't inappropriate?
You crossed the line with that one.
I will agree 100% with everything you said about Amy Adams, and I will refrain from saying anything further.
Okay, awesome. All
right. Amanda, has anyone stole your thunder for number 3?
You guys stole my thunder for everything. Everything. My number 3 is Black Widow herself, ScarJo. I love that character. I'm so excited for her to have her own movie. I think she's gorgeous. She's funny. Her voice sounds amazing. Chef, she was great. Don John, she was pretty funny. Even Lucy, I enjoyed her in that too. And I think she has her own level of gorgeous badassness that just floats around her like an aura. I just want to be her best friend.
All right, so another vote for ScarJo, and before anybody else says anything, I'll just piggyback off that because it's also my number 3. Talk about stealing your thunder, stealing my thunder. I knew this was a shoo-in from the beginning. It was one of the 3 that I knew was going to be on the list, and then after doing the research, it still was at the top. So it's my number 3. I think, like everybody said, the voice work for her is amazing, which is one reason why I'm super excited in anticipation for her next role with her voice, which would be in the Jungle Book for next year. I think that's great casting. And yeah, just everything you guys have said, I just echo all of that. Her, Chef, Winter Soldier, you know, she's good in Under the Skin. I'm not going to fault her for her acting or her performance in that, even if I don't like the film. But everything she's done, I've appreciated. And I think she's someone that, again, comes to mind if someone is just to ask, you know, say one of the biggest names out there for actresses today, she's going to come to the top of a lot of people's minds. So
I even love her new haircut. I thought about doing that to my hair.
I don't
like
even know
a flat
what her new
top
haircut looks like.
She's got like this freaking high top fade swoop over thing.
She can do that and pull it off.
She's killing it, and I thought about doing it.
It looks really good on her.
Yeah.
So Scarlett Johansson's my number 3, which means, Dan, it's time for yours.
My number 3, again, I feel like, well, I think up to this point all mine have been mentioned up to one. So I won't say much, but Jairo mentioned Michelle Williams already, and she's my number 3. There's something about her. Like, it's hard to give, like, good performances that are both, like, that are quiet performances, but she can definitely do that where, you know, she's not being the loud, boisterous. She can kind of just stand in the background and still give a performance that is rather strong. And she's, you know, even done something that's a little bit more, you know, Oscar worthy with something like My Week in Maryland, where she's playing iconic Marilyn Monroe, and she does it really well. But, you know, like we mentioned, Take This Waltz and Meek's Cutoff, Shutter Island, Blue Valentine. There is, you know, she's such. There's so many actresses that have that ability to kind of become like a relatable human being that just seems like a normal person, and she's able to do that, especially like Blue Valentine, where, you know, if you never, it felt like you're watching just this everyday person going through these struggles. So again, in the last few years, she maybe hasn't done much since 2013, really. I mean, she was okay in Oz the Great and Powerful. There's really not much for her to do in there, but she started off the decade really strong, so I'm hopefully she's going to get, you know, she has a few things on her plate coming up. You know, nothing too fantastic from what I can see, but within the first few years, 2010, 2012, and 2013, she was really on a pretty impressive streak there.
So a couple of votes for Michelle Williams there. And
when I hear that, I think of the member of Destiny's Child. That's all I can think of.
Beyonce? No.
There was another girl
Michelle Williams.
named Michelle Williams.
She's actually from Rockford, PS. She comes back all the time.
Anyway.
Homeless now.
Moving... What's that?
I think she's homeless now.
A lot of people are in Rockford. All right, your number 2, Jairo. Top 2, what is it?
No, okay, so here are the shoo-ins, man. And number 2 is Jessica Chastain. This is an easy one, man. I mean, she's knocking it out of the park right and left. Obviously, there may be some sort of attraction from me, but I mean, just going through some of this.
Really? Really?
Absolutely. I mean,
wow.
She's right behind Gabrielle Sidibe, but whatever.
That's the first time I've ever heard you use her real name.
I can't stop laughing. Oh, Jesus.
It's just sleep deprivation. Don't worry about it.
Go back to Jessica Chastain.
Yeah, Take Shelter, Tree of Life, The Help, Lawless, she was really good. Zero Dark 30, everybody loves that. I think the disappearance of Eleanor Rigby, I think she did a fantastic job because she made me hate her. She made me be super frustrated with her. And for her to do that to me is an incredible feat of acting. Interstellar, I loved. A Most Violent Year, she was incredible. Even in a movie like this year, and I know it doesn't count, but Crimson Peak, where it's not that great of a film, but she was out of control, fantastic in it. So I mean, if
you want to see her out of control, watch Miss Julie with her and Colin Farrell because it is fucking god awful.
Okay, I'll add that to my queue. I had to add that to my queue, but yeah, she's just always fantastic, and I love her.
No, you do not add Miss Julie to your queue, please. But I will agree, it's my number 2 as well, so we're definitely in line here. Everything you said, ditto. I just think she's been someone who, every time a new film comes out, it's almost like it propels her a little bit further. It's not any of this 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It just seems like she continues to take steps forward, and I think she is second to only one. So I definitely agree that she's number 2 for me. Amanda, I went out of turn, so that means we go backwards to you. What's your number 2?
My number 2 has also been talked about previously, and that's Emily Blunt. I love what she puts out. Edge of Tomorrow, Into the Woods, Looper, Muppet. She's got a lot of dynamicism. I think she
What did you just say?
I'm sorry?
She's so good we're inventing words for her.
She's got a lot of potential to be dynamic. She has a lot of dynamicism.
Oh, boy.
Dying over here.
I miss alcohol.
Yeah. It's tasting good over here. But I think she's one of those people that also brings so much intensity and in her own right, a lot of heart to what she does. And I'm excited to see her more.
All right. That's higher than I expected her to fall on anybody's list, but since I also have it on my list, I like that we have
How about you shut up and stop hating on my list?
I'm still trying to get over
dynamicism?
Why don't you look it up? Look that shit up.
Sounds like a transformer.
If it's not a word, it should be.
Sounds like a disease, like an affliction.
All right, Dan, what's your number 2?
My number 2, again, I think it's one that's been, again, brought up already, so it's kind of not going to say much. But honestly, starting this list, I thought my number 2 was my number 2 was going to be my number 1, but because she's my favorite actress. But I ended up when I looked at everything, I couldn't rightfully put her at number 2, and it's Amy Adams is my number 2, and I think when she's in a movie right now, I'm getting super excited. And we talked about how she outacted Jennifer Lawrence in American Hustle. I think she has an ability to, even when a movie is full of really big and powerful performances, still hold her own, and in some ways even take control. Look at something like The Master, where I feel like there is just this like quiet control she's able to have, and also honestly, like, there is a viciousness to that character that you see it just break out in just the right moments, where like I'm far more scared of her in that movie than even that of Philip Seymour Hoffman, just because there's something about her there. And I think she's also the type of actress that she would be able to survive in any era. She has a musical background. She could probably just be a biggest star in the 50s as she can now. I think she can do pretty much anything. So the only thing that kind of held her back for me from being number one was that looking within at least the past 5 years, she hasn't had that movie where it was her performance that was leading the pack. Like she's great as a supporting character or within an ensemble cast, but she didn't have that movie where I felt like this is all on her shoulders. You know, she's had stuff like Trouble with the Curve, which are not, which she's the main star, but it's not a type of performance that's very all that daunting. So that was the only thing that kind of held her back for me. I mean, she's number 2, so obviously I think she's fantastic, but I had to kind of, split hairs when I was looking at my 1 and 2.
That means it's time for everybody's number 1 pick. So, Jairo, what did you save for last?
So this is the shoe-in for me. Like, the second you brought it up, dude, it was like, okay, pencil her in. And it's Tilda Swinton. You guys all brought it up, I believe, at one point or another. But I think that, she probably hasn't been... Like, you mentioned her 2014 year, which was fantastic, but a film like We Need to Talk About Kevin is something that kind of really resonates with me, man. It's just such a powerful performance. Even the Chronicles of Narnia, she as that like white queen lady, she's just she blends into her performances. She just disappears in them. And then just to talk about her previous career, I think the first thing I ever saw her in was a film called Orlando. If you guys have ever seen or heard of that, it's kind of it's an old story about like a man transitioning to a woman in throughout time. It's kind of weird. And she's got this androgynous kind of quality about her, that male sort of way about her in certain roles, but she disappears in Only Lovers Left Behind, and it transforms us into like this sexy vampirical thing, dude. It just I can't say enough about her, man. Every time anything that she's in, I will try to watch. So yeah, she's my number 1 by a long shot.
Definitely a chameleon. I will agree with that. Amanda?
My number 1 is also Tilda Swinton. I think she's awesome. Ever since I saw her in Constantine as Gabriel, which is also a very androgynous role. She's got the tailored suits, but she's clearly a woman still. But I think that ever since I saw her in that, I was hooked. And I think she is definitely a chameleon, like you guys say. Snowpiercer, Narnia, Only Lovers Left Alive are the most recent ones. But I think that she has that ability to be anything she wants to be in a movie, and I think she steals the show.
Obviously, some agreement from the panel with Tilda Swinton.
Even in something like Trainwreck, like where you just you had no idea it's her. You guys saw Trainwreck, right?
I have not seen that yet.
Seen it yet.
Oh well, I mean, it's not a very good movie, but just look out for Tilda Swinton in that movie. See if you can spot her, because it's really hard to say. I mean, when we talk about disappearing into a role and being a chameleon, watch Trainwreck and just watch how she dives into that role and how she just completely disappears in that film.
Is she like Drexel in True Romance?
Oh, yeah, okay. I mean, no.
You know what I mean? How it's Gary Oldman in a role that you're like, holy shit, that's Gary Oldman?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like, I had to check IMDb to figure out who the hell she was, because I was like, who is this? I found her role to be funny, but I had no idea who it was until I looked it up, and I was just stunned.
I'm going to go with my number 1, which, Dan, I believe our 1s and 2s are just flip-flop, if I'm thinking correctly. My number 1's already been talked about, and that would be Amy Adams, for all the reasons that you guys already mentioned. So, Fighter, American Hustle, Muppets, The Master, Her, Trouble with the Curve. It's a pretty impressive resume, and I think what's even more impressive than the movies that she's been in is her performances. It's not just that she's in good movies, but her performances are always A++, as Jairo likes to say. And I think just watching her outact people, and I'm not just talking about American Hustle, but there's almost every film that she's been in where, like Dan says, she's playing more of a supporting character, she's playing more of a side character, and she almost steals the show every single time. So, and I agree with what Dan said. You can see her be successful in a lot of different genres, a lot of different time periods she would be successful. She's definitely a very diverse actress that has a lot of tools in her tool bag that she can pull out at any time. So Amy Adams is my number 1. I didn't know which way I was going to go with Amy Adams and Jessica Chastain. I knew they were probably going to be my number 1 and my number 2, but in the end, I guess I just slightly sided with Amy Adams on this one.
Yeah, and you're right. My number 1 is Jessica Chastain. And I think the one performance, honestly, that kind of sealed the deal with me was when I talked about how Amy Adams doesn't have that one performance within the last 5 years where she was the center point of it. And the one that Jessica Chastain does, the one that I kept going to, was her performance in Zero Dark 30, which is a movie I honestly love, and I think it's just her drive in that, with that character, just her sheer will to propel everything forward, and I don't know, that's kind of what sealed the deal for me. And she's been in so much, like we've mentioned, but I think she is, the sky's the limit with her, and she's like a capital A thespian, if you want to say. She's gonna do some amazing things, and I like to see again. She's been doing genre films, like things like The Martian, Interstellar, but then she'll do something like Most Violent Year. She's really kind of doing everything, which is, I think, fantastic to see. So
she's just so over the top in Most Violent Year that it's so amazing to see what she can do.
It is good. Before we get to honorable mentions, I'd like to just recap so people remember what the lists were. So, Jairo, why don't you go 10 through 1 real quick?
10, I got Carey Mulligan. 9, Juliette Binoche. 8, Elizabeth Moss. 7, Marion Cotillard. Number 6, Scarlett Johansson. Then Michelle Williams, Cate Blanchett, Amy Adams, Jessica Chastain, and the one and only Tilda Swinton.
Amanda?
10, Margot Robbie. 9, Melissa McCarthy. 8, Emma Stone. 7, Rachel McAdams. 6, Marion Cotillard. 5, Jennifer Lawrence. 4, Zoe Saldana. 3, ScarJo. 2, Emily Blunt. And 1, Tilda Swinton.
Mine were number 10, Emily Blunt. Number 9, Emma Stone. Number 8, Anna Kendrick. Number 7, Tilda Swinton. Number 6, Jennifer Lawrence. Number 5, Zoe Saldana. Number 4, Rooney Mara. Number 3, ScarJo. Number 2, Jessica Chastain. And number 1, Amy Adams.
My number 10 was Kristen Wiig. 9 was Scarlett Johansson. 8, Julianne Moore. 7, Emma Stone. 6, Tilda Swinton. 5, Marion Cotillard. Number 4, Jennifer Lawrence. And then number 3, Michelle Williams. Then Amy Adams. And lastly, Jessica Chastain.
All right, Jairo, I'll let you go first before we get into some final discussion. But real quick, first, what are some people that just missed the cut? What are some honorable mentions for you?
So I've got Elizabeth Banks, just missed the cut. Eva Green, love her. She seems like one of those like scene stealing, just like every time she's on the screen, she's just like a monster, basically, just in a positive way. But Rosemarie DeWitt is one I really wanted to kind of shoehorn in here because I love every time she's on screen. I think she's an actress that you don't hear talked about a lot, but I think that she brings a lot to the table whenever she does. And Brie Larson is another one that I really wanted to shoehorn in here, but just couldn't do it. So those are my kind of honorables.
All right, Amanda, which ones were close but didn't quite make it?
I think Ava Green was one of them. I think she probably would have been my number 11. Also, I really want to see more from Diana Agron, I think her last name is. She was in The Family with Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert De Niro. I think she's got a really pretty face, and I think she's got a lot of talent. I think she can do some really cool stuff. I think she was in I Am Number 4, too, as the love interest. And then also Saoirse Ronan. That's how you say that, Dan.
Wait, how do you say it?
Saoirse?
Oh, okay.
Not Saoirse. Saoirse. And then also Paula Patton. I think she's pretty underrated, but I like her.
For me, a lot of them have already been mentioned. Cotillard was one of them. Julianne Moore, like Dan had on his list. I had Anne Hathaway in the discussion. She didn't quite make the cut, but I think that there's some stuff in there that at least I considered her. Shailene Woodley, considered her. I think what kept her off the list was just more about the quantity. I think she has been in 3 or 4 really good films, but that wasn't enough over a 5-year period for me to put her in quite yet. And then one that almost made it just strictly based on quantity was Olivia Wilde. She's been in like 20 films in the last 5 years. I don't even know how that's physically possible. Again,
Didn't
a lot of them
have a baby in that time too.
I don't even know if this is a real person or if this is a robot, but definitely a lot of stuff. But when you kind of try to pinpoint the ones that would qualify for something like this list, I don't think she has the film, so that's why it kept her off for me. Dan, what about you?
I thought a few people. One that came to mind was Britt Marling. She's been in Sound of My Voice and Another Earth, and a few other films. it was hard to keep her off. Another one too that hasn't been mentioned is Maya Wasikowska. I think I'm saying that very incorrectly.
Oh, she's gonna jump on you for that one.
Yeah. Well, there's worse things. She's been in The Kids of All Right, Jane Eyre, which I think is a really underrated movie, Stoker, Only Lover Left Alive, Tracks, that came out last year, which I think maybe her best performance yet. So, and The Double. She's also in, like, Alice in Wonderland, obviously not a great movie, but... I
liked it. Don't hate on it.
I don't have to.
I want people doing it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like I really thought like Elizabeth Olsen would have potential making this list, but when you look at her filmography, she was great in Marcy, May, Marlene, but after that, she's been in a lot of crappy movies like Godzilla and Oldboy. Unfortunately,
she jacked up her face. What'd she do to her face, man?
I don't know. I did not ask her. I think it has something to do with the bloodline that she's related to.
Right.
And then lastly, Emma Watson, from Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Bling Wing, even her cameo in This Is the End, and she's been in the Harry Potter movies as well. But all the other honorable mentions I had were already mentioned. So,
and a few of the ones that other people had mentioned on Twitter that we didn't get to, that I wanted to at least throw out there, that they had mentioned Viola Davis, Naomi Watts, Charlize Theron, Meryl Streep. I think those were Kate Winslet. I think those were the only ones that we didn't mention that they threw out there. I kind of wanted to change the conversation just a little bit here in getting towards the close here. And obviously we're halfway through the decade, so this is a discussion that's kind of halfway to the point that we would get to at the end of 2019 when we're all the way through the decade. Which ones on your list are shoo-ins to make that list even at the end of the decade? Which ones do you think might fall out? And what names are possibly on the verge of having a real great 5 years that might be added to the conversation that none of us have mentioned yet, that have potential here in the last 5 years? Any way you want to go with that, Dan, where do you want to start?
I guess I'll start with ones I feel like that will be on it for sure within the decade. I mean, just Jessica Chastain, obviously my number one. Just looking at her career so far, it's going to be, even if she doesn't do another movie for the rest of the year, I think she has potential there. And again, Amy Adams, I'm pretty sure, because I think she's the type of actress that I don't feel like she makes smart choices, and she's, I don't think given a bad performance. So those are the ones, my top two, obviously, which is maybe kind of obvious, but the ones I feel the strongest about. The ones that might drop off the list, possibly Michelle Williams, because like I mentioned, she has not done a great deal in the last 2 years, and she's not have a lot coming up. And maybe, I guess, I'm not sure who else could drop off. Maybe Kristen Wiig if she doesn't do more, but I don't know.
Any that you're looking as far as potential that if they have a real good 5 years could jump into the conversation even if they didn't have enough to make it down this first half?
Let me get back to you on that. I'm not sure. Okay. I'm not really sure right now.
We're asking some really hard questions.
My bad. I didn't mean to come with these hard questions. Jairo, anything that you're thinking of as far as somebody that's really on the verge or has a lot of potential?
I think that could. The Brie Larson for me is someone that you can see kind of going forward that would be rising to the list. I think Carey Mulligan also, she made my number 10, but I think that she could easily be much higher. And I think that one thing, as far as those dropping off, I think you have to kind of, unfortunately, take a look at the way Hollywood treats women after they cross a certain age point. They kind of just fall off. Outside of Meryl Streep, you don't see a lot of these big, meaty roles for women who, get into their 50s and stuff. So, I mean, Jessica Chastain, she's, starting to get of that age. And Julia Binoche, kind of hanging on for dear life there. But, hopefully, I'm obviously optimistic and hopeful that Hollywood will give them something to do. But, it is what it is. So.
I had a couple that I was considering that I think if they got the right roles could be added to the conversation. I think someone like a Natalie Portman has the ability. I just don't think she's landed necessarily all the right roles.
She doesn't work that often either. She's just like, she's had kids. She went to school. She lives her life, but she But I think she has the potential to all of a sudden just wow us with 2 or 3 films and all of a sudden be in the conversation. I think some of the ones that Amanda already mentioned. How do I say that? Saoirse.
Saoirse Ronan, I think she could be someone we're talking about in another 5 years. I think, like Dan said, Emma Watson is definitely someone that I think could very quickly join the conversation. I think she's already has a couple films on her filmography in this last 5 years that could add to her resume. Margot Robbie, I know she was on your list, but I think she's definitely someone that with a few more years could even jump a few spots and be added to some other people's list. And Shailene Woodley would be the other one, as far as I think with another 5 years possibly could join the conversation.
Right.
I think you're right, though, Jairo. I think you nailed something on the head there with the way Hollywood does treat aging actresses, that you do have to worry about some of these people somewhat falling off. Obviously, if I'm looking at my own list, maybe Zoe Saldana doesn't end up in another 5 years being in the conversation, or if they don't take the right roles, my bottom three, Anna Kendrick, Emma Stone, and Emily Blunt, depending on what kind of roles they get, I could see them going either way. I think ScarJo, Jessica Chastain, Amy Adams, Jennifer Lawrence are all people we're still going to be talking about in 5 years, though. Any thoughts, Amanda?
Well, that's a really hard question. I think Emily Blunt, ScarJo, and Marion Cotillard really have the potential and the star power to stick around for a while. As far as people dropping off, I think Jennifer Lawrence will drop off. I think maybe she's just a fad with some of these, roles that she's gotten. So we've had quite a few stinkers out of her too. So we'll see what she does.
Dan, any time to think about someone that's on the verge, on the cusp?
Yeah, I thought of a few, and maybe it's more so because of their TV work that maybe they'll be able to transition to movies. But one that came to mind is Alison Pill. She most recently was in The Newsroom. She's done some movies with Lagoon, and she was in Snowpiercer, and she was in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I think I think if she could be within that Michelle Williams type. Also, just because I've been watching a lot of Parks and Rec, but I really think Aubrey Plaza, though she's kind of a crazy person, has a lot of potential as an actress. She's has an interesting comedic style, but I think she's could be a decent actress. And someone I'm surprised hasn't done more, but was Elle Fanning, who was in Super 8 and gave a really great performance, but hasn't really done much since then. And maybe lastly, someone like Amanda Seyfried. She's been trying to. About her. She's been trying to kind of gear out of the romantic type of films, but she hasn't had, she's done things like, Lovelace.
Lovelace, Die in the West.
Yeah, Les Mis. She's Million Days Away, Ted 2. She was in Pan this year, but I think she has, if she can get out of being typecast, maybe she has a stronger career ahead of her.
Maybe, a few other ones that maybe not. I don't know what it's going to help for them, but you said Amanda Seyfried. It made me think of a couple people. Abigail Breslin. I was thinking of Ellen Page. There's a lot of people out there that these younger actresses. It just kind of depends on what kind of roles they kind of tie down. And kind of closing, though, a lot of people are talking about 2015 as kind of a shift here in actor versus actress performances. I've heard it on multiple podcasts. I wanted to get your guys' views on this. A lot of these years they're saying it's really hard to pinpoint the top 10 actors' roles, lead or supporting, and then you get to the actresses and it's just like the only good ones are the ones nominated because there isn't a lot to choose from, especially from the lead category. And a lot of people are kind of seeing a shift this year with the number of lead performances by females, that it's kind of an overwhelming category this time to try to pinpoint and to kind of narrow that down. Are we seeing a shift? Is this just an aberration year, or where do you kind of see the state of the actress right now, Dan?
I think it's getting better. I mean, there's still a lot of room to grow. I mean, the question is, can this continue? Is it just an aberration? I don't know. It's hard to say just as of right now. I mean, especially someone like myself who has not watched a lot of movies this year, unfortunately. But I think there has been a lot of push and a lot of demand for it, and a lot of, especially if you look even something as trivial as like Marvel, who's been getting yelled at for the fact that they have no really strong female movies up at this point. So I think since that demand is there, that hopefully it will continue, but at this point it's hard to say, because sometimes you'll get those weird years, and then it's look at last year where all the actors were there's no diversity whatsoever within the actors, so you do worry that you could have a backswing in 2016 or something like that. So
Jairo, do you agree? Is 2015 the year of the actress?
Who knows, man, to be honest with you, dude. I mean, because there's so much yip yap going across the and right, justifiably so, obviously, about equality in pay and the roles that women are getting in Hollywood, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm hopeful. You know, all I can say is that I'm hopeful. Really, you know, I can't really predict what's going to happen, but you know, hopefully it's not a fad. You know, hopefully it's not just the people on Twitter just hanging on to this as like a fad or something like that, and people yelling things at the Oscars and that kind of thing. Hopefully it's a real movement that'll stick. You know.
If those movies make money, I think they'll certainly, you know, honestly, I think that comes down to it for people. If, you know, people can yell at Twitter, but if people aren't going to see those movies, the movie studios don't really care. So
I think that's the bottom line for all movies. You know, people complain about Transformers and blah, 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 but you know what? Those movies put asses in seats. You know, nobody's going out to see My Sister's Sister, you know, and representing a really fantastic film, but, you know, everybody's going to go out and just watch this drivel and watch robots bang into each other. So, I mean, hey, man.
For 10 more years.
Yeah, no kidding. It's up to the consumer to go out there and support good films and women in films. So
it's kind of the good thing of seeing something like with Netflix with Beasts of No Nation, where maybe they'll be able to, you know, where the consumer, you know, will get the content straight to them. So, you know, they'll be able to have more avenues for filmmakers to kind of get their stuff out there.
Amanda, you're obviously the only female on the panel, so what's your take on 2015 so far? Have you been happy with the number of lead roles that you've seen that a lot of these actresses we've talked about throughout the last hour or so landing, including, you know, obviously Charlize Theron and Mad Max and all the other ones throughout the year? Have you been happy with what you've seen?
Honestly, I'm really sick of everybody making this whole strong female lead fad into a fad. I think that there's always been a level of girl power in our culture, in movies. Everybody wants to see that chick step up and beat down a guy, you know, G.I. Jane the shit out of a bunch of dudes. And I don't see why it's all of a sudden a big deal. I always look for that female badass, and I always want to connect to the girl that's kicking ass and taking names and, you know, not playing the victim.
So you don't think you've seen more of that, though, in the last year or so?
I wouldn't say necessarily, no.
Okay.
I mean, coming from somebody who always looks at, you know, for that in the characters that are in whatever movies, you know, it's always been, I'd say it's equal to past years.
All right.
I don't think there's any one huge female main lead that sticks out to me either.
Fair enough. All right. Jairo, tell people how they can listen to you.
You guys can find us at True Romance Film Podcast. You got to add a little film doodad in there because there is another True Romance out there. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google us. We're starting to get a little more active on Letterboxd. Definitely a lot on Twitter. So it's at True Romance Cast. That's true without the E. Pretty much just find us anywhere where you can find anywhere, you know, you download podcasts.
Sounds good. And as for us, obviously, you can find the show on Twitter at Cinema Geekcast. Dan, what's your Twitter?
I'm at Movie Revolt.
And I am at Optimus Solo. Amanda, your Twitter?
Heart Candy Mandy, Eyes No Wise. Not Handy Candy Mandy, Jairo.
And as always, please visit the website geekcastradio.com. That way you can actually comment on the episode post and we'll interact with you there as well. Got some fun stuff coming up, including, like I said, we still have the top actors of the decade, which we'll be bringing you at some point in November. So be listening to all of that stuff, and then we'll be back next week with a regular episode of the Cinema Geeks. But until then... best movies after that.
You know, I'm very proud of you guys, man. Nobody brought up Sandra Bullock's name. Not a single person.
God, I wanted to so fucking bad.
I think she was afraid I was going to give her a hard time.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I was going to tear into her.
He was ready to tear into you.
If it was like in the 90s, I would have crushed it. Practical Magic, Hope Floats. This bitch was in everything, and I loved it. God,
what are you saying? Are you even? What? I don't even know what language you're speaking, bro.
God, get out of here. Go back to Colombia, Peru. Maybe they'll have a Sandra Bullock want to be there, and you're like, you know what, maybe Sandy B wasn't so bad. I'm going to go back to America with Sandy B. That's
She just deported me for not liking Sandra Bullock.
You're already in another country.
Man, she just Donald Trumped you. Jesus.
She's actually bringing me back, though, like, because, bringing me closer to the States. So.
That's a step up.
Yeah.